بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله المغفر لنا ولشيخنا ولجميع المسلمين. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: ثم يقبض كوع يسراه تحت سرته وينظر مسجده ثم يقول: سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. This is the fun stuff. In Sifat al-Salah, we began with the Raf' al-Yadayn and the Takbir, and understand the difference. The Takbir is to say Allahu Akbar. What is the hukm on Takbir? This is the first takbir, takbirat al-ihram. This is a rukn from the arkan of salah. Raf' al-yadayn, which you do at the same time, this is mustahab. Okay? That's how you began. Then the statement of how you say Allahu Akbar and all of that, we discussed about the different levels of recitation and all of that. طيب? Last stars. The muallif in Zad, al-Hajjawi, says thumma. يعني in al-Buyuti in Rawat al-Murbi', as I told you, for this section I'm going to be giving a lot of the explanation because it really benefits. He says إذا فرغ من التكبير. يعني what is he talking about? ثم, what do you mean? Like after you do the takbir, what do you do? يقبض الكوع اليسرى or يسراه. طيب. What does he say? Meaning he grasps or grabs the left wrist. طيب. Now, this is the beauty of Zad al-Mustaqni. It's very summarized. He doesn't say with what, but in the sharh he says بيمينه. Al-Buyuti in Rawd al-Murbi' he says بيمينه, يعني which according to Zad al-Mustaqni, you should have kind of taken for granted. But that's why these shuruh are good, to make it clear. So when you are done with the takbir, what do? You grab the left wrist with the right hand. طيب? Now we see some of the brothers, what do? They put their hands down. They make takbir, they put the hand down, and then they fold it. طيب? And there are some adilla, like the hadith about the Sahaba that were new in Islam and they had statues in their sleeves, and that's why Rasulullah put the hands down so the statues could fall and then they could fold them. Now, these ahadith are da'if. There is da'af in all of them. We're not even going to go there, right? What is correct and what is in the clear, explicit ahadith, and we'll mention the ahadith inshaAllah, is that you do not put the hands down. You just, after you make takbir, you fold the hands. And that's what the matan here is telling us. Now, I mentioned the Rawat al-Murbi' that I have, has the tahqiq of Sheikh Sultan al-Eid and others, Thamir and others. One of the beneficial points they made here, and I've always pointed this out to the brothers, that one of the mistakes, what does the matan here mentions? It mentions the wrist. One of the mistakes brothers make is they fold the hands and they grab their elbow. Mirfaq, or marafiq, if you think jaba'. So they Allahu Akbar. Right? So, and this is a mistake. And I've seen this all over in other countries and stuff. Allahu Akbar, and then they're like this. They're holding their elbow. Some even further higher up. There is no adillah for that. There is no madhab for that. So this is clearly just a mistake. طيب? Now we get into the issue of folding the hands. I'm going to summarize, but so there's two extremes on this issue, as with everything else, right? One extreme where people don't care. They're like, who cares? Whether you fold, don't fold, fold here, it's all good. Well, this is the people who say that are people who don't care about the sunnah. Like, they don't really care about following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They don't really, they're kind of like, whatever. And that's wrong. As a Muslim, even if something is mustahab, even if something, you should care. You have been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the preservation of the sunnah, so you should care enough to find out what is correct and follow it. Yani if you go to a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu and you ask them about their religion, you ask them, how exactly did Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus, pray when he woke up in the morning? If you ask a Christian, they don't really know. And we find some references in the Bible today about him putting his hand on the ground, but none of them do that. But if you ask them the details, they don't know. They just make up stuff. You go like this, you go like this, you go like this, and make it up. Right? You go to Jews, make it up. Live chickens over their head, blah, blah, blah. All they just made it up. How did Musa alayhi salam actually pray, or Dawood alayhi salam? They don't know. If you go to a Hindu and you ask them any of those stuff, right? They'll just make something up, right? I mean, I was just recently going through the Gita, for some da'wah stuff, and man, it's just like a long conversation between two guys. There's like no ibadat, nothing in there. The virdas even, oh man. So Allah blessed us. What a beautiful religion we have. We have the Quran, we have the ahkam, we have the sunnah, we have the ahadith. We can know how the Prophet ﷺ prayed, so why would we not care? One extreme. Other extreme, they make the issue of where to fold the hands into the furqan, into the criterion between people of sunnah and bid'ah and mubtadi'ah and this. Ya Allah. This is not that type of issue. There are issues like that, but this is not one of them. This is amr wasi'. This is something where there is room for khilaf. طيب? So if you see somebody putting their hands up and you're like, Wahhabi. There's something we see, Wahhabi. Don't talk to him, he's Wahhabi. Like, what's wrong with you? Okay? And if you see somebody putting their hands below their navel, mubtadi', person of bid'ah. No. This is the other extreme. Alhamdulillah, we the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we the people of the Sunnah are in the middle. Okay? We care about the mas'ala, but we know this mas'ala is not one to divide the ummah upon. Some things you have to take a firm stance. You don't care who stands with you or not, because it's a clear qat'i dalil, mutawatiran or ilm al-yaqini, or something that is between bid'ah and sunnah, and something that has no adillah and dillah. Yes, take a stand. I'm with you. But when you have adillah, and the adillah, even if you take the issue of raf' al-yadayn, after ruku', and we'll get into that mas'ala later in the bab, that's something where the adillah is very strong. The adillah against it is very weak, and the adillah for making the raf' al-yadayn when getting up from ruku' is mutawatir. Here, take a stand. Go, even those mustahab, but I'm with you. We'll take a stand on that one. But here is not the case. Where to fold. So, I just want to put that in everybody's head before we go forward. The muallif here and the sharih, al-Biyuti, he says, وَجَعَلَهُمَا, and you put them تحت سرته, under the navel. استحبابا, Rawt al-Murbi' says, to show this mustahab. So, what is the first mas'ala? Is do you fold or not? In earlier durus, we went a lot deeper into this. I don't think I'm going to go that deep into this, but I will mention some of the adillah and some of the opinions of the ulama and the madahib. There are 4 well-known madahib. I'm not going to go into the Zahiris too much, but they also, Zahiriya, and some of their works that I've read, they took this to be wajib and stuff. That's different. Also, Raf' al-Yadayn they took to be wajib, but not gonna go. Let's talk about the 4 well-known madahib. So there is the Hanafi madhab. I have looked through every single standard reference books of the Hanafis that I could find. Al-Hidayah, Al-Quduri, the Mu'tamid, Hashia Ibn Abidin, other works that I could find that were books that you rely upon. All of them across the board of the Hanafiya agree that you fold the hands. Now I'm not going to go into where yet. First we're talking about folding or not folding. So Hanafi, no doubt, the Hanafiya, they have this. Then we get to the Malikiya. In the Maliki madhab, you have a few different opinions. One is you make irsal. Irsal means to hang or dangle the hand to the side. One opinion is you do qabd, to fold, or wada', to place. Qabd, wada'. One is that you fold, or you can fold during the nafal, but not during the fard. And there are other opinions too, but these are the major opinions within the Maliki madhab. It is a mistake that brothers make to assume that the Maliki madhab across the board has the opinion to dangle the hands. If you look in some of the standard books of the Maliki madhab, like Al-Baji Sharh Muwatta, he will find that Al-Baji, the great Maliki faqih, he took it to be the madhab and the sunnah to fold in the Maliki madhab. If you look at Ibn Abdul Barr, in his own works, and in his works, you will find that he clearly took at-Tamheed, Istizkar. If you go look up his works, he clearly took it to be sunnah to fold, and he refuted, go and look up his aqwal, he refuted those who talked about making irsal, even though when he wrote the work just outlining the madhab, he mentioned both opinions. Because in that work, he was just putting together what the Maliki madhab's aqwal are. But in his shuruh, he was very explicit that he took it to be sunnah to fold. Ibn Rushd, the famous Maliki, he also took to fold. Ibn Mundhir, who is not Maliki, but Al-Awsat, his work is always known to go find out the aqwal of the ulama. He presents Imam Malik's work, Al-Awsat of Ibn Mundhir, go check it. He takes Imam Malik's opinion to be to fold. So you have these opinions within the Maliki madhab. Having said that, if you go to the Muwatta of Imam Malik, if you want to look at Imam Malik's own aqwal, if you go to the Muwatta, he has an entire bab on folding the hands in salah. Now, Malikis, well, some of them will tell you, oh, he only did that to show you he knows the ahadith. Well, if he knows those ahadith, and he did not put a bab for irsal. There's no bab in the Muwatta for dangling the hands. Go look it up yourself. And when Imam Malik in the Muwatta, and I studied the Muwatta, so this is something you need to know from his style. When he sees a hadith that was contradicted by the actions of the people of Medina, he will mention the hadith and then he will write, but the people of Medina did not practice this. Imam Malik did not write that under the bab of wad' al-yadayn fi salah in the Muwatta Imam Malik. Tayyib? Look it up. So this shows that Imam Malik did not consider this to be contradicted by the practice of the people of Medina. Where did the idea of irsal come from? Ibn al-Qasim, one of the great well-known Maliki scholars in Mudawwana, he asks Imam Malik a series of questions. Now, but the important thing that people miss is look at context. Look at context. What were the questions about? They began about somebody leaning in salah. Tayyib. You know when you're making fard salah, it's makruh, it's disliked to lean. Tayyib. You should stand straight, you should not lean on anything. In nafal salah, you can lean. As some of the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, when they used to make long nawafil at night, they would tie a rope and they would lean on it. So he asked Imam Malik this mas'ala, that can you lean in salah? He says, I don't like it in the fard, but it's okay in the nawafil. He said, what about folding the hands? So the context was folding the hands in the sense of leaning, in trying to lean on yourself. It's a little weird, I know, but you got to understand. And he gave the same answer. He said, I don't like it in the fard, but it's okay in the nawafil. So the context was leaning, not wada' or irsal, having to do with the sunnah of it. Because Imam Malik in his Muwatta, and there is no historic documentation that I could find, and I've challenged Malikis over and over, of showing Imam Malik's own practice of making irsal. This conversation is one thing, but his own, there was, oh, he knew it, he did irsal, show me. There is a story about when he was beaten for not giving a particular fatwa, and this story, I looked up the sanad, it has major weaknesses in it. But even if you take that to be true, well then he did irsal because his arms were paralyzed, not because he thought it to be sunnah. Rather, Ibn Abdul Barr said all of the students of Imam Malik, and he mentioned many of them, reported from him wada, any folding, except for this conversation with Ibn Qasim. Later on, Malikis, they just, to defend their madhab, they were like, the people of Medina did this. Show us the evidence. Abdullah ibn Umar, his Mawla Nafi', and those who were fuqaha of Medina, if you look at their aqwal, they all mention folding. Having said all of that, in the end, What matters is the sunnah. We challenge anybody. One Ramadan, I said the what, $10,000 prize. If they can find us one sahih, sarih, hadith, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made salah in qiyam with his hands down. Don't say i'tidal. I'tidal is just being relaxed. And in sujood you have i'tidal, you don't do that, right? Say, don't take a hadith and chop it. Where the hadith, which is a weaker hadith, which Rasulullah made the raf and then put it down and then fold it, and they're like, you put it down. Like, I know, but continue the hadith. Right? Don't take mawdu'a hadith, right? You're not taking kadhab ala nabi or matruk. Look at these ahadith. And then when you can't find those, ittaqillah, and you have taqwa of Allah, and then look at the evidences for folding and fear Allah and tell me, what are you going to do? Tayyib. Which brings me to the evidence of folding. Well, let's go over the madhahib first. Tayyib. Shafi'i madhab, the well-known opinion in the Shafi'i madhab and the mu'tamid is to fold the hands in salah. Across the board, if you go to the mu'tamid books of the Shafi'i, you will find this opinion. In the Hanabila, Hanbali madhab, if you go to Muntaha al-Iradat, or you go to the Sharh of al-Bayuti, or the works of al-Hijjawi, go across, go to al-Mughni or al-Insaf, the mu'tamid of the Hanbali madhab, no doubt to fold. Even though there are opinions that would attribute to Imam Ahmad for other than that, but this is the mu'tamid of the madhab across the board. Tayyib? So, these are the four madahib and their opinions. Now, let's go to adillah, proofs. Because in the end, every madhab, every alim's goal is the proofs. I'm going to summarize, I'm not going to go deep here. Tayyib? In Sahih al-Bukhari, in the most authentic book of hadith, and no doubt, without any criticism of the sanad. Hadith al-Bukhari, Sahl ibn Sa'd radiyallahu anhu reports that we were ordered in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to fold the right hand on the dira', on the forearm of the left, fi salah. Now remember the wording, fi salah, because we'll get back to that later in the bab. He didn't say fil qiyam. Fi salah. This is in al-Bukhari. This is also reported by Imam Malik in his Muwatta. Abu Hazim, one of the reporters, the one that Imam Malik speaks to himself. He's the one that Imam Malik reports from. In the Muwatta, Imam Malik quotes from him that he says that we don't know of anybody else having ordered except that this was from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So who's the one that ordered it? Rasulullah. And the reason I'm saying this sallallahu alaihi wasallam is because some of the people who have غليظ القلب, the people who have that hard, diseased, amrad hearts, they will try to find way around hadith. So they find this hadith in al-Bukhari and Sahl ibn Sa'd very clear. They're like, well, it doesn't say who ordered it. It was the Banu Umayyah, it was the Abbasiyya. And I've heard this guy from the Bay Area, people call it Sheikh, give this explanation. From it's not called Teen. What's it called, that institute? It's not Teen, something else like it. And he says in it that we don't know who ordered it. Obviously, you read the Muwatta. I hope you read the Muwatta. You talk about Imam Malik all day, and you read Abu Hazim the Rawi. Explain it. And this is a usul in hadith, that when a Sahabi says we were ordered in the time of Rasulullah, it was Rasulullah. Why did he not mention Rasulullah? This is from Balagha. Like, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Why did not say Kataba Allahu alaykum? Because who else could ordain it? So here when it says Umirna, we were ordered, who else has the right to do that? Abbasiyan Khilafah, what are you doing? Look at the sanad itself. The Rawi explains that Imam Malik mentions the Muwatta. How, ittaqillah, how are you going to deny hadith like this? No doubt to this hadith. But it's not the only hadith. Okay? Then we always hear, there is no Sahih hadith on folding. What? In the Sahih Imam Muslim, while Ibn Hajar radiyallahu anhu, he mentioned that I saw Rasulullah make raf al-yadayn, I saw him fold the hands. In the Sahih Imam Muslim, while Ibn Hajar, he doesn't mention where, but he does mention folding the hands. The sanad is impeccable again. No jarh on it at all. Sahih Muslim. So we have Bukhari and Muslim both showing a hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam folded the hand. There is also the riwayat from Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu in the Sunan of Abu Dawud, which is a Hasan Rawaya. There is also Harith radiallahu anhu, Utayf ibn Utayf. This is a Hasan Ghutayf actually. Harith ibn Ghutayf. And some of the Rawayat mentioned it, Ghutayf ibn Harith, but this is also Sanadan, a Hasan Rawaya in the Muslim Imam Ahmad. There is a Rawaya At-Tabrani mentions from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma that says that the Anbiya, that Rasulullah said, the Anbiya were ordered. And from the three things, and making the suhoor fast and delaying the, making the iftar fast and delaying the suhoor and so on, from that he says that the Anbiya were ordered to fold their hands in salah. Anbiya, not just Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Anbiya, and this was Sahih Rawaya. طيب, if you want to see more, if you go to Nail al-Awthar or so on, a good takhrij, you will find many other rawayat. I'm writing a book on the subject which has all the masail of folding the hands, where and fold or not fold, before ruku, after ruku. So inshallah I will mention all the adillah. Here I'm not. But these ahadith are enough. They're clear, they're sahih, they mention them. When you have all of these and not a single clear sahih hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he didn't fold, what are you going to do? It doesn't make sense. Right? Tayyib. Which leads us to where to fold. Tayyib. Now we get to the issue of where. Here, this is where there is some room for khilaf. But I will mention that which has been mentioned in the different books of hadith. And the madhab. So let's go with the madhab first. Hanafi madhab, across the board, I didn't find much khilaf within the Hanafi madhab. They took it to be sunnah mu'tamidan, to fold the hands below the navel. Below the navel. Hanafi madhab. Now, I'm not saying ijma'an amongst the ahnaf even, not ijma' of the ummah, amongst the ahnaf, because, for example, Abu al-Hayy al-Laknawi, in his explanation of the Muwatta of Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani, there is a Muwatta Imam Malik, there is a Muwatta Imam Muhammad, which is based off the Muwatta Imam Malik, but his own narrations. In his explanation, which I have at home, he does say that it is thabithan, it is mathbooth, it's proven from the Prophet ﷺ to fold the hands on the chest. And he's Hanafi, Abu al-Hayy al-Laknawi. And there are others who did this as well amongst the Ahnaf, but they're rare. The majority of the Hanafi madhab is underneath the navel. And the dalil that is the most commonly given dalil is the hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu, where it says, من السنة ودع اليمنى على الشمال تحت سرتي. And this riwayah is mentioned in the Musnad and the Sunan of Abu Dawud and the Muslim Imam Ahmad. And because Ali radiallahu, even though he doesn't mention Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he says min as-sunnah, so it's not considered mawquf, it's considered marfu'. But no doubt this hadith is da'if. No doubt to it. Even though if some earlier scholars may have depended on it and considered it, but if you look at the sanad, there is Abdurrahman ibn Ishaq al-Kufi, and Nawawi says that there is ittifaq, there is agreement of the ulama of hadith to his da'f. Not just that, there is no khilaf, like none of the ulama of hadith considered him authentic. According to Nawawi, there is across the board, and any from the kutub of Rijal that I found biographies for him, they all weakened him. But on top of that, he reports using an on Ziyad ibn Zayd, who's also da'if. So there is multiple weaknesses, and if you go to any book of takhrij of hadith that checks the sihah, the hadith is da'if. There are other rawayat that are also da'if. So there is no authentic rawayah for below the navel. Tayyib. The Maliki madhab and the Shafi'i madhab and a qawl, one of the aqwal of the Hanbali madhab, is above the navel, under the chest. تحت صدر والفوق سرته. And this is something you need to understand. Today we take opinions like under the navel, above the navel, on the chest, like this. But the ulama of the past, if you look in Al-Mughni, for example, Ibn Qudama, or Sharh Al-Kabir, which is the Sharh of Muqni', right? Those a'imma from the Hanabila, they said فوق سرته, and they mentioned the hadith of Wail ibn Hujr ala sadrihi. So what does that mean? They took this whole region above the navel and up to the chest to be one opinion. And this is the mu'tamid, to put your hands on the chest or above the navel, of the Shafi'i madhab. And from the Malikiyah, who did take folding, then they took this as the opinion as well. And this is one of the opinions of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, no doubt, even though it's not the mu'tamid of the Hanabila. But Hanabila, such as Ibn al-Qasim in his Hashiyah of Rud al-Murbi', which is the Sharh of Zad al-Mustaqni, Ibn al-Qasim, very classic, well-known scholar, he took this opinion. And every book, from the Sharh of Muntaha al-Iradat to Al-Insaf to Al-Mughni to any of those standard books of the Hanabila that you go to, they will give you this opinion as one of the opinions of Imam Ahmad. In our time, most of the scholars of the Hanabila, like Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahmatullah alayh, or Sheikh Ibn Baz rahmatullah alayh, or Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, in his printed works, even though I heard an audio that was different, but in his works that we have, they take this opinion of putting your hands on the chest. Now on the chest here means from the chest plate to the navel. This whole is considered as the sadr in the sense of this fiqh mas'ala. If you put your hands very high where you're touching the neck, then this is makruh. There's karaha here. You're not supposed to put your hands like this. Rather, to put them here or above the navel. This is the opinion of the Jamhur al-Ulama in this sense that you will hear. Tayyib. The ahadith here are many, but I will just mention some of them. The hadith of Wa'il ibn Hujr, mentioned by Ibn Khuzaymah, and no doubt that this hadith has been considered to be sahih in accordance to the usul of the rawat. Yani the chain is no doubt sahih. There is some khilaf of ulama whether there is ziyada in this. Because Wa'il ibn Hujr, he mentions the wad' al-yadayn in the riwayah that is stronger, which is in Sahih Muslim, without mentioning ala sadrihi. Shaykh Albani and other Aimma said there is no khilaf here. One is a mukhtasar, which just doesn't mention where, and the other mentions where, because the chains are all strong. Tayyib. So if we take that, then this hadith of Wa'il ibn Hujr becomes a very clear dalil and a sahih hadith for folding the hands yani upon the chest, which would mean yani again below the neck area all the way to the navel. There is also the mawquf riwayah from Ali radiyallahu. Ali radiyallahu, mawquf meaning it's his fi'l, where he folded his hands above his navel. Right? And that contradicts the other's weak narration, right? Which if it's weak and contradicts something that's sahih, then it becomes munkar, right? So here, the riwayah from Ali radiyallahu himself shows that he folded his hands above his navel. Tayyib. So, what is the answer here? Even the matan and the madhab may be whatever, but the qawl that is sahih, in the light of the evidences and the authentic narrations, is it is from the sunnah to fold the hands right on the left, anywhere from above the navel to the chest. Okay? Below the navel, we don't have an authentic narration. Up on the chest, touching the neck, we have no narration except one very weak narration, and this is karaha, that is disliked action. So anywhere here, if somebody puts it right above the navel or a little bit further up to the chest, there is no problem. There is no like 10 degrees and things like this. There are other riwayat that mention the elbows were in line and what do you call it, surflex? Yeah, the middle of the rib cage here, sternum. This right here, where the bottom of the rib cage, solar plexus, right? This and inshallah in the book that I'm writing, I'm going to put all the riwayat, but all of these are yani from the places that have been mentioned. So nothing wrong with any of that. If somebody puts it a little bit lower, somebody puts it higher, this is all within the sunnah. Okay. Now, if somebody puts it underneath the navel, are they doing something bid'ah? La, they're not. If somebody puts it on their elbow, are they doing something bid'ah? Yes, they are, because there is no narration for that. If somebody puts it touching their neck, are they doing something bid'ah? Yes, or at least makruh, because there's no narration. There is a narration for touching the nahr, but this is extremely weak and so on. So within the accepted aqwal of the ulama, there is no bid'ah that is mentioned here, but what is from the sunnah is to put the hands above the navel or up to the chest, and all of that is amr wasi'. Tayyib. Then you say the dua al-istiftah, the dua of beginning the salah. And the Jamhur al-Ulama take this to be sunnah, even though as I read in the Maliki madhab, they don't have this. Ibn Abdul Barr does support it from the Maliki as well. But Subhanaka wa bihamdika wa tabarak ismaka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk. This is the well-known, and the one we were all taught as kids, and this is authentic narration, nothing wrong with that. Or what is the madhab is that you can use any authentically narrated narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Allahumma ba'ad baini wa bayna khatayaya. This is the other narration of Umar ibn Khattab, also Sahih narration. This is the one I personally use, and nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I use Subhanaka wa hamdika wa tabarak asmuka because there's nothing wrong with that. To switch those out is fine, but not to use two. We don't see in the madhab, in the kutub of the madhab, they clearly say don't use two because we don't see that narration. Rather, use one of the other. And there are whatever is authentically narration from the dua al-istiftah, the opening dua, nothing wrong with using that. The matan here mentioned Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika wa tabarak asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk, and that is what is mentioned in the matan. But as in the shuruh, it mentions that any one of those can be used. After that, we'll end and begin in the next dars, inshallah.